for our performance tonight, our performances. I know that our students have been working extremely hard and should be extremely proud of themselves. Just a couple reminders before we get started tonight. We are videotaping, so we ask that you remain in your seats and stay in the parent section, the viewing section, so that way all of our students can do their best performances. Just a friendly reminder to turn your cell phones on silent, and also to enjoy this amazing show. I know how excited our students are to perform for you, and how hard they've been working. And we also want to thank our staff as well, and music teachers. So, before we begin, I would like to welcome everybody to do the Pledge of Allegiance with me. If you'd like to stand, if you're comfortable. I would love to turn it over to our next performance.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Right now on stage you see our 4th grade string orchestra, and the way I built the program is we go from the easiest one, the first piece played entirely in unison, meaning everyone has exactly the same notes, exactly the same rhythm, to the harder concepts. And the first piece we will be doing is Ode to Joy by Ludwig van Beethoven. Kids asked me to tell you the story which is historically confirmed. Ode to Joy is a part of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, and it's a poem by German poet talking about unity, peace, and friendship in a way. When Beethoven wrote it, he was completely deaf. He couldn't hear a single note. How do you conduct a massive piece of 150 musicians? A choral group is about 80 people or 100 plus orchestral group. So the theater secretly hired a second conductor who was on the balcony without knowledge of Beethoven, and musicians and singers actually looked up as this second conductor. When the piece ended, Beethoven just stood, never turned his back to the audience because he could not hear cheers. And from the newspapers of the day, there is an account that one of the young choristers went down and actually physically turned the composer and said, "Look," and he looked at the cheering audience and he started to cry. So that's the story. Twinkle Twinkle, and this is piece that is much more complicated. You'll hear clearly three separate parts. One part with the supporting Colombian notes coming from cello bass, another part sitting right in the middle from our violas, and violins carrying the melody. Enjoy. Played by fewer musicians because they auditioned to play this piece. They wanted to do something above a regular program, and here's the results. Likely Row. Our last piece of the set is based on American traditional song called Bosom Cabbage Down. The piece called Fiddling Hoedown. Now, fiddling music, American traditional genre, is technically a dance music. So I promise the students that our audience will dance, or else. So please do dance, clap, you can dance in your seat, it's fine. And that's what the music for. Enjoy.
on stage, I thought this would be a good time to do some educational filler. So as far as instruments go, we want all instruments to go home today, just because there's no space in the closet, because not all the kids bring them in on the same day. But there's two really important reasons why, if it's financially and physically possible for you to keep your instrument over the summer, here are two really good answers, at least I think. First one, musically, the longer that they continue to play their instrument, the faster and the better they're going to get, even if they're going to be taking a vacation to the shore or on a plane or on a boat or however you're traveling this summer. Any playing they do over the summer is going to help them next year. That's really helpful for our 4th graders who are coming back as 5th graders. That's extremely helpful for our 5th graders that are traveling over to Crossroads South, getting them prepared for the next part of their musical journey. So from a musical standpoint, it makes perfect sense to keep their instruments over the summer. I know financially, sometimes that can be a little bit of a thing. Please check with your vendor. I know some of them offer like a summer discount where if you continue to rent the next year, they'll give you the summer for free. I'm not speaking on their behalf, but I know that those types of offers have traditionally been offered in the past. So please check with your vendor. They offer that. And financially, because some of you think that way, financially, it makes a lot of sense to keep your instrument as well, because the amount of money you put towards that instrument throughout the year has basically been going towards paying it off. It's like a car payment, right? So the more that you pay, the faster you own it, and it's a good quality instrument, so you get to own a quality instrument at the end of that process. If you return it and get another one back, your credit goes to zero. Not your credit score, your instrument credit. So like the money that you put towards that instrument now goes back to zero, and you have to restart that payment process again. So financially, it makes sense to keep paying it, because it's like a car payment. The sooner you pay it, the sooner you will own that physical instrument. And then usually after that 2nd or 3rd year, that's when, as teachers, we make those recommendations to purchase an instrument, what would be like the 2nd or 3rd level of that instrument. But your kids have great quality instruments in their hands right now. So if possible, please consider keeping them over the summer, but we do ask that all instruments go home with you this evening. It looks like our orchestra is ready, so I'll pass it back to them.
All right, we will start with our 5th grade orchestra, and our first piece is based on original and very famous American fiddling tune, Cripple Creek. Enjoy. symbolically enough, into the sky. Our fifth graders go to middle school, new future, new friends, new everything, sort of into the sky, taking off. And I ask our musicians to come up with a poem the way they hear this piece, and we have two poets reading the poem.
Hi, my name is Lena, and my name is Kayla, and today we will be reading you a poem based on our piece Into the Sky. The engines are roaring, the plane will start soaring, and roads of clouds await this plane, which you can see through your window. You will experience these things throughout our piece, like roaring engines, soaring planes, and who knows what other things you'll hear. Feel free to close your eyes and imagine that you are in the plane, as our piece will surely lift you up into the sky.
It's been a tradition in this building. Sometimes we're very lucky. We can invite a very special soloist, and we're lucky this year as well because we have a soloist coming to us from Italy, and her name Contessa Vittoria Belladonna. She speaks Italian. I don't know how much English she speaks, so I'm gonna go out and check, and she will be performing one of the most famous arias for us. O mio babino caro, just let me go and check. She arrived just this morning.
Countess Victoria Belladonna, and I have performed at the highest of venues. Let me just tell you a few that I performed at. I performed at La Scala, Royal Albert Hall, Metropolitan Opera, Carnegie Hall, and Vienna Hall. And now I shall grace you with my presence in South Brunswick. We shall try this again. You all do not even know who you are playing for tonight. I must go.
Looks like we lost our soloist, so I guess we have no choice. The show must go on. O mio babino caro.
So, a little bit of a fun fact about all the groups performing, or I should say most of the groups, maybe the exception of the jazz band. All the groups performing at essentially every concert you see, at least at the elementary level, is learned and performed in the equivalent of one day. I am not exaggerating when I say that. They have one lesson a week, about 30 minutes. If nothing goes wrong, if no instruments are forgotten, no reeds are broken, no slides get messed up. So if everything goes right, they have one lesson a week for 30 minutes. Over the course of about 3 or 4 months, that adds up to about 12 to 14 lessons. That's 6 to 7 hours. That's essentially a school day. So everything that you see and hear tonight, as well as for our 5th grade families that were here in the winter, is performed and learned and taught in the equivalent of one day, which is really, really cool. So behind me is our beginner band. These are students that have played their band instrument for the first year and the first time. Okay, the first number we'd like to perform for you is Hot Cross Buns. Part of that is also to help teach you a little bit about what you're hearing. So I like to think of music, or the band specifically, as kind of like a smoothie. When you go to John Butcher's and you order that mango, blueberry, chocolate yogurt, whatever, right? You can list all the ingredients, you can taste all of those ingredients, even if you didn't see them listed on the board. You can kind of guess, oh, yep, that tastes like blueberry, oh, that tastes like raspberry, and so forth and so on. So we're going to teach you how to listen to your kid. Now you're probably saying, well, I've been hearing my kid for 10 months. Why do you need to teach me how to hear with your kid? Because you see them mixed in with every other instrument. So you may know how their instrument sounds, but maybe not how it blends in with the rest of the group. So we're going to play the song the first time with everyone. That's our musical smoothie, so to speak. And then you're going to hear the sections or the ingredients, so to speak, of that band sound. So you really can pick out, oh, that's what my daughter sounds like. Oh, that's what my kid sounds like. So it's kind of like you can kind of hear your kid's voice in like a crowd of people like you see and hear tonight. You can kind of hear what their voice sounds like. It's the same thing, just with music. So please enjoy Hot Cross Buns. And please hold your applause until the end of the first song. We're going to do it the first time with all the instruments, and then we're going to break it down section by section so you can really hear what that whole sound is composed of. We're going to do a little tuning up just to make sure all the adjustments are made. Okay, now the flute section. 2, 1, 2, ready? Now the trumpet section. 2, 1, 2, ready? And now our clarinet section. 2, 1, 2, ready? And now our saxophone section. 2, 1, 2, ready? 1, 2, okay. Now our percussion section, which is a mixture of glockenspiel and snare drum. 1, 2, 1, 2, percussion, and... Give it up for Hot Cross Buns. So from here on out, that's kind of the lens, so to speak, that I wanted to look at the music through, is kind of how all of those sounds get blended and mixed together. So, without any further ado, I'd like to introduce our next song.
And I play the flute. The next song we'll be playing is Au clair de la lune.
And a little out of season, as you saw in our program, sometimes we're able to have a concert in the winter for the beginners, but I know it's kind of a hard push to get the music prepared in the first 3 months when they're kind of figuring out everything. If you remember what they sounded like at home in the first couple months of school, that is also normal. That is part of the process, as you know. Sometimes they benefit from having a little more time and a little bit more practice just to kind of smooth out some of those beginner bumps, so to speak. So anyway, even though Jingle Bells is a little out of season, developmentally it's quite appropriate. Okay, you'll notice a pattern from the beginner orchestra and the beginner band that they start off with kind of simple folk music, whether it's American folk music or other folk music as well. That kind of takes care of a couple of notes. Once they get a couple of notes, then they kind of add a little more and add a little more. So Hot Cross Buns was the first song they learned with 3 notes. Jingle Bells was the first song that they learned with 5. They know a lot more than that, but developmentally we're kind of tracking their progress a little bit. So, out of season, but not out of style. Jingle Bells. Let's have one more round of applause for our first-time band students. Moving right along to the next group, so please pardon us while we make another transition. Okay, behind me, or to my left, is the jazz band. This is an audition group. These are students that express interest in learning more difficult music on their own. We did meet once a week after school for about 3 or 4 months. So we have 2 songs ready to perform with you. And if this is your first student that is part of jazz band, the thing that makes jazz band different than the rest of the part of the band program, or even the orchestra program, is the addition to improvisation. So it means that they're going to play some music that is not written down on their page, okay? And some of them, they become a little shell-shocked, where we spend 2 years teaching them to read what's on the page, and then we say, okay, now we're going to make up some music that's not on the page, and they all go, huh? Because it's like, play the page, play the page, play the page, and then they have to come up with the music on their own. So it's no different than coming up with a speech, as I am doing at this very moment, right? So just doing that with music at the kind of introductory level. So the first piece we'd like to perform is called Killer Joe, and we'll announce the soloists at the end. Sean on the piano. Give it up for Sean. We have Akar on the saxophone. And Moran on the trumpet. And the fourth soloist was the wind blowing our music around. All right, and the next piece we'd like to perform, the last piece of the jazz band section, is a piece called Blue Train. So some of you kind of had a confused look on your face when we said that the next piece is Killer Joe. Jazz music, what they did, and they kind of still do, is they write the song first, and then they have to come up with what they named it. So there's a lot of weird names that they came up with that have nothing to do with the actual music. So the first one was called Killer Joe by Benny Golson, and this one is called Blue Train by the great John Coltrane. That's kind of the play on words, famous saxophone player. So please enjoy Blue Train. up my feet, Jeff, literally. So, on that, we have Vihan on the piano as our first soloist. Give it up. We have Sahaj on glockenspiel. Give it up. And then we finish up with Vihan on saxophone. And just to give him due credit, we have Rishan on the snare drum and the drum set. Even though that's not necessarily a solo instrument, it's literally the heart and the glue that holds the band. And so give it up for Rishan on the drum set. Moving right along. Can you give him another round of applause for dealing with the air conditioning and blowing their music around? That was amazing. Very professional. Okay, and the last performing group this evening is our 5th grade or advanced band students. These are the students that have been playing their instruments for 2 years. You see that we took some of the jazz band students and populated them back into the rest of their group. So we're going to play 3 numbers for you. The first one is called Wings to the Mind. the next piece we'd like to perform is kind of a quirky piece. So not every teacher does it the same way, but I have my 4th grade students at the end of 4th grade pick music for the following year. So the 4th graders that just played earlier this evening, they picked music for the spring concert. We won't tell you unless you've heard them practice it already. So the music that you're hearing them play on stage, they actually picked at the end of 4th grade. So this piece is a little quirky. It's going to feature our trombones. It's going to feature some weird, kind of quirky percussion instruments. So please enjoy Tadpoles. And see if you can hear the frog, because there is one. Okay, so before we play our last song, I just want to go over a couple quick dismissal procedures so that by the time the concert ends, we can say some nice things and then we can pack up our instruments quickly and get you back to your cars and back to your houses. So first off, on behalf of me and the rest of the music department, Rob Sears, and the rest of the staff here at Cambridge, we really want to thank you for coming out tonight. It really does take a village. I like to talk about the triangle of success. Okay, teachers, we're in charge of teaching them the music. The students are in charge of learning it and perfecting it and performing it, and then you provide the encouragement, the support, and the literal instruments in their hands, and all three need to kind of work in sync. So I will share in their success. I can't take credit for it. You can take a little more credit than you're probably giving yourselves now. So I want to say thank you for doing your part in making this community really, really beautiful for music. So thank you very much. And again, so as far as dismissal goes, so when we finish this last piece, all the students in the front couple rows, they're going to go into the cafeteria, put their instruments away. The one thing that no one likes in New Jersey is traffic, so we will kind of let them out kind of in tiers or waves. So We will release the 4th grade students first. Once their instruments are packed away, they'll find their families, and then you guys can exit right away. Okay, once the 4th grade families have exited, then we'll release the 5th graders. You find your families, you get reunited, and then you enjoy the rest of your evening. So that way, we kind of keep things going. The room has to be put back together mostly by us, so that kind of helps make sure that the custodians can put their chairs and the equipment away, because they do such a great job taking care of us. We want to make sure we take care of them. So, without any further ado, we'd like to perform our last piece of the evening, which is called Shadow. Round of applause for our beginner orchestra. Our advanced orchestra. Our beginner band. Jazz band. Folks, one more time, thank you so much for coming out and sharing our evening. I know we went a little longer than expected, but it's well worth your money. So thank you very much for coming out. Just a few closing remarks, and remember, we will dismiss your children to you once we have a minute to put the instruments away, and then you can go take them home and enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you so much for coming out. Some closing remarks. Friends,
All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you again for coming. We had a beautiful did a wonderful job tonight, and it just goes to show what hard work and dedication can do. So I hope that you continue on this journey, because music is really soothing for the soul. Parents, as Mr. Pishko said, I thank you for supporting the program, be it getting them to practice, making them practice, getting them instruments, and we really appreciate the partnership that we have with you. We want to also thank our music staff, Mr. Pishko, Ms. Clark, Ms. Boyle, because they make the music happen, and we are so grateful to have such a wonderful music team. Thank you to Ms. Martinez and Ms. Russo for being so thank you guys. Mrs. Redente, do you want to say something?
I think we also need to say thank you to Mrs. Pemberton for her performance tonight.